You know, maybe they should just go ahead and put a revolving door at Arkham. Gotham double feature again this time because basically the world conspired on me and I did not have it in me. I was too beat to do last week's episode at the time that it aired, and then other stuff that I had planned came up. So catching up, so last week's episode and this week's episode. So that means I am talking about the sinking ship and the great applause, as well as my three soups. My three soups or the three soups? What the heck is it? It is one of my three soups. Yeah, I need to look these things up because if I say it wrong, somebody will put it in the comments. So, let's go. Well, let's go in order. Let's start with the first one. The sinking ship and the great applause. This was great. This was the level of madness that I enjoy. And you know what? I had an odd realization watching these episodes back to back. There's something about when insanity happens in daytime that I like better. Because contrasting these episodes, like this first one happens mostly during the day. You know, there's scenes at the docks, middle of the day. There's scenes at Arkham, middle of the day. I like that. There's something about that I like better than the stuff set at night. I don't know. It just feels more, unique maybe, unreal. It feels more Gotham to me. That, like, of course, they don't even wait for night. This stuff just happens. But in any case, so there's a lot of stuff that I like in this first episode. So, God, I'm even trying to think of everything to talk about. Right off the bat, I really am enjoying watching the development between Selina and Bruce. I loved them in both episodes, but in this first one, I love their scene in the pawn shop, and I love, you know, Bruce just throwing down and kind of starting to be a bit of a badass. It was was good stuff. Trying to think. This is the problem with watching these things back to back, is I'm having trying to remember what happened and what. Well, we basically got the Penguin and the Riddler back together again, which was nice. If they're gonna pair them up again, they need to be done splitting them apart. We need to be finished with that, and you know, if there's an external thing that drives them apart, that's different. But we need to be done with the whole internal strife thing. What is going on with Barbara? Oh, that was at the very end of that episode, kind of fed into the next one, so we'll come back to that. You know what was, well, you know what, I'll save this because it was like my favorite thing. I liked Sophia being taken down by Lee. That said, I was a little sad to see Sophia go down at all because she kind of grew on me. It's funny, a lot of the Gotham characters take a little while to really click into place for me. It was the case for Barbara, who at this point is one of my favorite characters, like, ever in television. And it took me a while with Sophia, and I think it wasn't until her plans stopped always falling exactly as she wanted them, and basically the brattiness started to come out of her, and I found her more interesting and more compelling and more just engaging as a villain. And of course, despite the fact of being shot dead center of the head, she's in a coma instead of dead. Gotham. I also like that that Lee went there. Lee pulled the trigger. The moment that I love in this episode, and it's just phenomenal, was Harvey talking to Jim, and because Jim says, you know, that he's going to confess, you know, to his part in all of this, and the deal he struck with Sophia and what happened with the pig. And Harvey just tells him no, because that doesn't help anybody but you. You'll feel better, but you'll have done damage. And the GCPD will lose confidence in you, and they will fall apart. The only person who benefits from you confessing is you. So you want to be a good guy? You take it. You take the pain, you swallow it down, you keep it inside, and you do whatever you have to do to numb it. And in the case of Harvey, it's drink. And this lines up with what I was coming to like about Harvey in general, and it really does solidify the character for me. It really is like, look, he's not a great guy in a lot of ways, but he doesn't just internalize to be a tough guy. He internalizes because espousing his pain doesn't help other people. There is, you know, it's possible to have selfless isolation, for lack of a better term. And this is basically a concept that Harvey introduces Jim to. And first of all, I like that because I think that's honestly something that's hardly ever acknowledged by and large in terms of our society and pop culture in general. There's this adoration of tell the truth. The truth is always best. And sometimes it's not. Sometimes telling the truth, you'll feel better if you do, but it won't actually make the situation better. It might make everything worse. There are times where telling the truth and being honest is actually the selfish thing to do. And you do more benefit to more people by keeping it inside and just dealing with with what it is, instead of just expunging it and having the world deal with it instead. And that's not a perspective that happens often in entertainment. I think it's just nice to see in general, and to see it coming from a character like Harvey, who's a character I like. That was a nice bonus. I think that's most of the things I wanted to hit in that episode. We had the return of Victor Fries in a very nice episode. He's developing the coldness and the personality. Also, Victor Zsaz, God, he is so much fun. I'm not thrilled that I can't remember his friggin' name, the guy who now has the eye patch. I'm not thrilled that he's back because I didn't really care about him. I kind of just like that he went down like a punk last time we saw him. I thought that was going to be it. But I'm always happy to see Zsaz. I mean, that's just great stuff. So the next episode, let's lead off with Barbara, because she was kind of the cliffhanger off the previous episode, and then into the next one, the one of my three soups. So the whole thing with that is, well, first of all, I got very nervous once that kicked in, because the whole Ra's al Ghul thing, unfortunately, I think was one of the weaker elements of this season so far. There was some good that came out of it. Its impact on Bruce overall, I think, has been a net positive for the character, and it's given him a journey this season. But as a character within the show, he didn't work for me. So when we got hints at him, what I was afraid they were going to do, I was afraid they were going to pull an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and have, like, Ray, like, take over Barbara. Now he's, like, possessing her, and then she's not even Barbara anymore. She's now this other character I don't even like as much. Like they did on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. with Ward, where the character died and then became possessed, and, you know, the actor's still walking around, but the character I liked is gone, and this much more boring thing is walking around. I was so afraid of that. And it doesn't look like that's what's happening. So, the League of Shadows, it felt a little ham-fisted, a little contrived that all the female members killed all the male members because they were weak or wouldn't accept Barbara as the leader. But at the same time, logistically, I'm totally down for paring the League of Assassins down to a relatively small number, because just otherwise it can get too unwieldy, and it could have ended up reminding me too much of the Hand from Iron Fist and the Defenders, and so I think stripping it down to something more basic was a good call, narratively speaking. And I will be curious to see how all that pans out. Obviously, the big centerpiece of the second episode is, you know, the big breakout from Arkham, with Scarecrow and Jerome and Tetch. Now, I'm hoping they have Scarecrow gets more to do in the next episode, because right now he feels kind of superfluous, because Tetch certainly kept people busy. Jerome's obviously got his own thing going on right now. He usually does. Overall, this episode was fine. It's the kind of one I'm tempted to skip over on rewatches, though. Not because it's bad, but because it's largely a setup episode. It's laying the groundwork for whatever is gonna come next, because we just had a pretty sizable shakeup with the death of Sophia, and so now we're leading into here's the new resources Barbara's gonna have, and sort of here's a general idea of what Jerome and his guys are up to. So you know, you get feels for it, but it doesn't have as many like big yeah moments. That said, there are two things that I really did enjoy. One, Gordon's solution to the jumpers on the ledges. That was perfect. And like oddly straight-faced and sincere in its sentiment, because that could have been really cheesy. This whole idea of, you know, you can't tell them to save themselves because I've already hypnotized them that if someone tells them to save themselves, they will jump. And he says, save each other. And there's something about that not only is a clever workaround, but also so wonderfully symbolic of just everything, you know, that they are, you know, gonna reach out and I can't save myself, but I can save you. And together, maybe we can all save each other. It's, yeah, was surprisingly touching and played just right, I think. The other thing that I really liked from the second episode, and this was a relatively smaller moment, but it's basically Selina dressing down Bruce and saying, Bruce, your ego. When he's saying how the fact that he didn't kill Jerome makes him somewhat responsible for anything Jerome does, and she's just like, dude, it's not all about you. Which, first of all, was nice in the moment, but also more people need to tell Batman to get over himself. Honestly. And I know he's not Batman yet, but like, yes, I like Batman, but dude, come on. So that, I love that. That made me very, very happy. And also, like, the whole thing with Selina, you know, sort of finding it difficult to return the jewelry and having a hard time basically, I was gonna say facing the consequences. I'm not sure that's even it. I think she just, the idea of asking for forgiveness is a very foreign concept to her in the first place, and I think the whole thing in her mind is just weird. Like, she has a hard time wrapping her head around it, and I think that plays well in this episode too. I think that's about it. That's most of the major things I wanted to hit. The first of these two, so basically last week's episode, is the better of the two. It was a nice, at least for the time, since she's in a coma and not dead, closeout for Sophia's story. And the next one was a decent setup one. I will be really curious to see what happens after this. I mean, Jerome's out and about, so generally speaking, you're gonna be talking about a wild ride when that happens. So I think that'll just about wrap this one up. Gotham, latest 2 episodes. I will try to avoid falling behind again. I'm really sorry. It just, look, it happens sometimes. But in any case, have you seen them? What did you think about them? Whatever your thoughts are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. All the stuff to do, such as support me on Patreon, like this stuff, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, links for all this stuff, and even more stuff is down in the description. So until next time, this council is adjourned.